Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. I kind of took that from my first podcast, my favorite podcast, but we're so glad that you're here. It's really an exciting topic today. There's a lot going on, as you know, in the Google sphere. That is a term that we coined and trademarked, so don't try to steal it. Anyways, we're just really happy that you're here. As you know, there's a lot going on. The Google GA4 analytics updates coming in July. We sent you an email about that, but we just really want to stay on top of what matters most to Google so that you can continue to rank really well. So Lindsay, our VP of Audience Strategy, is going to take you through some really tactical things that you can do to prepare yourself to thrive in the rest of 2023. So without further ado, Lindsay Valdez, our VP of Audience Strategy, take it away. Oh, and I'm sorry, one housekeeping thing. If you have questions along the way, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I will monitor those questions, and then at the end, I'll make sure they're all asked to Lindsay, but please drop them as they come up so you don't forget what the question was that you had. Thanks so much for joining.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I am Lindsay Valdez, VP of Audience Strategy at Freestar. I am so excited to talk about quality factors today. You can jump to the next slide as we can. You can look at the agenda of things we will talk about here. So excited with the turnout. I know even names on the list, we recognize so many of you, over almost 120, 130 publishers signed up for this. And we love that so much because it's a lot of what we do is a partnership and is a relationship with you guys. So we work on these strategies all year long, year round with publishers. Today, we're going to talk about the quality factors that matter most. As Lauren mentioned, a lot is going on with Google. We will talk about the value that you can not only bring to rank better, but also to your website. Think about this today as what you're going to long-term do to your website for it to perform better, not only in Google, but anywhere for your audience. Some of it has to do with content, some UX, as you can see there. Your brand reputation is more important today than ever. When to expand your site content or presence, when to consolidate, and at the very end, we'll talk about algorithm recovery. One thing that we offer to Freestar publishers, if you monetize with us, is SEO consultation and guidance on where and how to grow your audience. So if you have taken one of our webinars in the past year or met with me or my team separately, a lot of this will be familiar. Nothing today is brand new information. I like that, though. These are things that you need to be thinking about and have. Some of you have been thinking about these for years now. And then some of the key definitions as I walk through, I wanted to mention as I get started, the more common things that we see for quality. One of them is thin content, just the actual content itself, what publishers write and publish, pay someone to publish, however they're getting their content, can oftentimes be viewed as thin content. So there's some definitions on here. No value to customers. A lot of what we talk about has to do with how to be more helpful to your customers, not less. Thin content is a sure one that's not going to win in the future of search. Shoppable content speaks to not so much the transaction on your site, but the strategy of incorporating recommendations, reviews, roundups, when you are using that, more of the affiliate strategy. A key phrase number 3 is just think of it as your keyword. I just want to make sure no one's thinking of keyword as like a one word kind of area. Think of these like we've long evolved from that into more key phrases and topics. And number 4 goes right along with that. It's NLP, natural language processing. Google, we know now, right now, current day, but for years has used a lot of AI to understand how users talk. When do they want Apple the fruit? When do they want Apple the product? This took a lot of understanding from how users search. And then the SERPs, I just say it a lot, so I wanted to know, search engine result pages. It's where, just think of it as like you Google something, what do you see? A week ago today, yesterday, Google announced some huge changes to the search results, to the future versions of search results. So I wanted, keep that in mind to whatever level you've seen Google, seen those changes. This presentation was actually outlined and built before Google announced those huge changes. And I think we mentioned it lightly, but we will have a lot more communication on how we feel our publishers will be best suited for that. But we do know one thing, that quality isn't going to be something, this information today doesn't change. We need to make sure our websites are quality. All right, so the benefit of caring about quality, you can see these. I've been working with publishers on traffic and what sources make up their traffic for years now, to be able to confidently say that quality pays off when it comes to ad revenue. And that's obviously our main goal here at Freestar, is to get your CPMs the highest, publishers' revenue the highest. So when it comes to quality, there's just a correlation between junky, low quality, spam filled content, and obviously the things that we're going to talk about today, which is what you want to be doing. People stay on the page longer. That's more money, more impressions are viewed. Users trust your site. Trust is going to become under a huge view in coming years, even more. Again, this is things we've been talking about for how, like, trust, accuracy, publishing good quality content. This isn't new. User experience. This is going to get even a more complex topic as Google starts to display their search results differently. What will the website experience be that can kind of stay on par with the cleanness that Google's now going to be providing right in the search engines? And increased organic traffic. All right, next slide. So there's plenty of benefits to care about the things I'm going to talk about today. The next slide here is just,
I think to Lindsay, just jumping in. Well, I just want to say, Lindsay, kind of the conversations we've been having too. I think everyone who's here, you're really showing up for your site, because I think there's going to be winners and losers, and that's kind of what we've been talking about. So just being here today and like caring and leaning into these things, it's not really a luxury anymore. It's kind of a must. So, congratulations just for being here and being interested in these topics, because there are going to be winners and losers. And so it's really exciting to kind of help everyone be a winner in the future.
It is exciting. Thank you. Setting up some proper expectations too, because this isn't easy. No one today is, like, especially me, is going to, it's easier said than done. These are the things that I've watched publishers do, right? I talk to publishers. I get my information from industry sources as well. I visit webinars. I talk to other publishers in and out of Freestar. We go to conferences. We try to stay up to date on the strategies that publishers are doing to get traffic from the search results. It is not easy. I often have faces on the other side of the screen that are saying, I don't have the bandwidth. I don't have the resources to do this. Freestar, we're always thinking of ways, like, what could we do too? What can we have as to support our publishers? Is it a developer? Is it a content tool or human that can help? Where's it getting stuck? Publishers, many times it's bandwidth. When I'm asking that, and when I'm telling them, I'm sorry, but the site is not technically sound for modern day SEO. I know it's a huge lift to migrate systems and do those things. So I wanted to call out that it's not in vain. I do know that it takes time. This is probably the biggest 6 months. I always say, don't expect much, and you have to be consistent until, do you know how hard it is when after 4 months of putting everything you have into quality content and you're not seeing anything, but keep going, because Google, I'm not seeing the slide anymore, because Google, they want to trust you, right? So it's not as if 2 weeks of solid content is going to get you right into the rankings, right? It takes time and you have to be consistent in those improvements. Get in the mind of your user. This is an important one, just in that so many times I don't, what would they want next? This is where like the helpful content comes into play. It's also where I see in some of those upcoming search results plans of Google's the idea of queryless search. They've talked about this for years. What does the user want before the user knows they want it? And to view your site the same way, what sort of information are you publishing? What would they want next instead of going back to Google, right? We need to think as now you're competing in a sense of Google. How do you keep them instead of hitting that back button right on your site to provide them the next piece they would search for? It's rarely a smoking gun. I was laughing about this as I thought about it. There's been sometimes that I remember like a no index tag being like accidentally left on when your site went live or something like that. And you're like, oh, there's other than that, I could not think of, oh, lift the no index and then Google indexes and you would get right. But that was almost like I can't think of a time when there's just been one issue. It is always multiple issues on quality. And then I watched publishers go through everything and they don't know either. And I get the frustration. There's certainly clues. We can talk about that using data using Google Search Console can help you discover maybe some technical error. So there's things to help expedite it. But it is a slow, painful process to just get either trusted by Google for the first time. So that's when you're like trying to get included in Google News and included in things. And then secondly, to come back from being penalized. Business, not blogger. I believe I have a slide of this also in the end that talks a little bit more about it, but how do we behave? I don't literally mean it as blogger. There's not that many bloggers that are just, that is almost like an outdated term now, but how do you become even a more evolved, well-rounded business? So one man to many man, kind of in that picture of how I'm thinking about that. And then I wrote this before last week when Google changed everything that we're to expect that layout to look like. So I knew it before, but now we have even, I guess, a little clearer of a picture of where that's going, but they change quickly. So things I say today, we need to understand that you may hear something new tomorrow, but Google has generally been this reliable hustle, reliable efforts have been put into SEO and organic search and content over the years. So where will those efforts net out in this new environment? We're all figuring it out together. Next slide. All right, so I believe I mentioned in the agenda, there was content and there's 3 different sections, UX and brand. Content. There's a lot of technical, and maybe you'll notice there's a few, you can go to the next slide. I will mention something that has to do with like a technical enhancement that you can make, but a lot of performance, a lot of the technical can be in this iffy gray box if your page speed is a little slower than some other things. Content quality is not really negotiable. Like Lauren said, there's not another option. Poor quality content won't be in the search results. It probably shouldn't have been, but if you somehow have been managing on the long tail search or a very niche audience to be able to not have evolved on quality, now is the time, because I don't think that will be the case in, maybe even in a year from now. Google is an information engine. So these again we're starting with content, how to make your content perform best in Google. There needs to be something the user searches for. And so this is where I've seen many sites struggle that were rooted and never evolved from a sort of story. When you used to write these essay styles, they're beautiful, they're wonderful for content, but if no one's searching for them, putting in who founded Nike as the example, putting in a search query, you're not going to get your page back. So that's one important part has been publishers to evolve past even just trending news, because right, even news, you don't know the news, so you see the headlines often cases. So it became about supplementing that with good evergreen content that was related. And then number two, trust the source. I think this is something that AI, let's throw that out there. We're not sure what we trust as users. I'm speaking broadly. We're not sure what we trust and don't trust. And this is where I think if you land on the search results and see content that you know to be AI collected or working on that AI engine, sure, it will be there. Publishers will lose traffic, end of story, from this new evolvement into Google, but it's not brand new. Think of all the times that Google has already displayed things at the top of search results. Then when they're looking at the citations or where Google is saying they get the information, those brands that you recognize are going to stand out because the user would trust them over time. So continue to press trust factors that I talk about more in this. All right. Next slide. Diversified coverage. This is important because think of the blogger to business. If you just wrote about one thing and every headline was roughly the same type of content, a roundup, 5 things to know about this actor. Think about that. If your whole site was just those like informational profile pages of authors, does that represent this fully rounded business or offering that you have to a user? So does Google view a website weaker? And I think we all know the answer to this. Which is weaker? A website domain that's just a store, product, just a store environment, or a store with a resource section and information on more about like why reviews, product reviews, interviews from people that made the products or that have purchased the products, user reviews. All of these things in the last decade have been working to the point we're at now, where a more well-rounded website and business is stabler and it increases the trust of the user and effectively the trust of Google. So think about your site today. Think about what you offer your users. Have you gotten by this far with just articles? Okay. And within those articles, is it one common type of content? Are you only news coverage? How is that supplemented or strengthened by, you can read these bullets of what makes it a more trusted, more well-rounded experience on your site. Forums and comments, these were once like it was almost like Google had to control them because they got spammy, right? We have all the it got to be some very gross environments when we had forums and comment sections, but they're extremely valuable if you can keep a user on the page because you wrote the content, but you trust the commenters and the ratings and reviews. So think of what you could have on your own site that would make it a deeper experience. Next slide. Okay, so attack the archives. This is a project that I talk a lot about, and I have dubbed it content cleanup. I say this where you're looking at all of the old posts. Think of where we're going with Google, where you really have the pieces of content that will have a chance to be in organic search are going to have to be the best of the best, right? So you're working with your most, like the highest quality of content. Think about everything you published the first 10 years that you were publishing. Everyone shudders to think of that, but its quality wasn't the same as it evolved to be. So I've worked with teams to take down or unpublish thousands of posts that were thin, that definition of thin content, If you know that you didn't really start caring about the quality of your posts until 2015, it can be a slow moving process to have a developer or yourself pull the URLs. Started in 2009, what was published. If anything's not getting content, and then I've listed here A, B, and C. This is a process Google says to do, but I quickly, this was a while ago, quickly jumped on board because it makes sense that the website is viewed by all of your content you've ever published. Yes, you can have these strong, good performers, but think about the overall ratio to good to bad, and then start weeding through the archives also from a budget bandwidth perspective. That if you have once upon a time published something that you would have the headline again, you would still publish it. It's a good headline, but the article itself was poor quality. Some of it might be savable or reusable, but bring it back to life. So the process is you identify the content. If it doesn't get traffic and is low performing, if you do it again today, consider putting some effort behind it. You could reassign it out and just use that old URL, update the date at the end, and you kind of bring it into your current process, or unpublish the post. One thing I did in one of my first publish when I worked with the digital publisher is to look at all the times you've covered an individual topic. You might have 10 articles that cover what to do like when there's a hurricane. There might be like a topic that you didn't really realize that every time it was like a trending news, you might publish it again. And then you have 5 similarly headlined articles, Google spreading the sort of weight they show for each of those. Clean them up by redirecting them to the old posts can go to new posts. This is one that takes a long time, but I've certainly seen it pay off at a later algorithm update time to see it sort of like lifted. And again, if it's the weight, the ratio of low quality or thin to high quality, we want Google to see the good quality. All right. This is showing an example of how to do this. GA4, I know nobody likes change. We're all getting our feet wet in GA4. I've watched countless trainings, read countless things, certainly have had firsthand experience now getting through many of your own sites that are running it. One quick thing I want to say about this is that go into the account. It's almost not, there's basic information. Sure, there's like what you're looking at here. All I did is in the same way you would use to go to landing page or page views in GA4 is pages and screens. On that screenshot that you're looking at right now is right above the highlighted one. Pages and screens shows page views. Landing page is a sessions number. You modify the date in the top right. And then this would be to see low performers. Say you wanted to see everything in the last year that hadn't performed, modify the date, swap the order by the little filter arrow right above it. So it pulls lowest, least to greatest. Export is going to be way easier. Once you get to this point, of course, export it, and then you can manipulate the data a little more to see the full URL and the post. But these are basics. Configuration, make sure, because I feel like there was like a way to get it started, like a button you push to get it running. And that was at one point that's all you had to do. But there are, countless enhancements of reports you can build, but make sure that it's tracking and running. We have, at least for our publishers, an outlined set of guidance on what to do, but often even then developers are a great resource to get this configured as you want. All right, next slide. All right. This is keyword research. Been around since the beginning, although now AI tools are very useful to speed it up, but many tools to understand what users want to know further about your topic. If you're a travel website, and you are very big into these certain niches and you have this headline, getting the right information on the landing page. As Google evolves, it's going to be very important that you get them there and provide the best user experience, but also, again, to what information is helpful right on the post. So these are like the subtopics kind of that you would include in an article about winter activities for kids. You may have different weather related terms, different subtopics that people care, where, location, where to enhance that page. Also, use different variations of the keyword. As we've said all along, write naturally, where you're not, don't be focused anymore on just getting the keyword in the page a certain amount of times. And keyword research can help you understand how people are searching for that topic to incorporate them into heading tags. Keywords as internal links. One of my most common recommendations that I tell people is you're not putting in enough internal links. It's an easy one. At the same time, you give users right there on the page a chance to go to another page to get the same amount of ad impressions seen out of one user. Is helpful for revenue, but it also is helpful for traffic. And Google is crawling and it'll give them a broader picture of all the things you've covered that are relevant to the post. There's some of the SEMrush it's the one I use. It's my fave. Many of you use SEMrush, but there's plenty of good ones. And then don't over optimize for keyword research. I've had publishers go through probably in some of the penalty recovery processes. You go through your posts and you notice that you put a certain term 50 times on the page in a very obvious way. I'm not saying that didn't at one time work, but if you're getting penalized and you see that on all your pages, it could be a spam related penalty where it's over optimization. But keyword research is important. It helps you stay focused on not just spinning your wheels, about what you think people use data when you can. Next slide. Semantic search. Okay, this was an example. You can see on the right, SEMrush, the topic was Bitcoin here, but they have something called, it's called Magic Keyword Tool, something like that, but most tools have it. Understanding the topic more, and then incorporating this, building out your content strategy, your editorial strategy, what you're covering, and to be more comprehensive and not less. What would someone expect to find on your site? Fully understand the topics that you're covering, and then make the page a better experience by incorporating them. All right, one of my most used content strategies, no brainer, connected content in the sense of staying relevant. I use the example at the time. You can tell exactly when I kind of started the deck and use examples from current day, but coronation, this is a great example of how it covers different niches. This was out of the entertainment, like an entertainment niche style, or news, I guess you would say news. You have the idea of, let's just say Wall Street Journal. Let's just say somebody, New York Times, maybe a little, it's better. New York Times is a little better. So think of like an edgy news source that maybe get away with covering like this genre that fits both evergreen facts. Huge number of people wanted to know more about it. What is the coronation? There's a concert, there's this, that. You can obviously read all those, but the news of covering, that is more the humans and the people, and interlinking them together to include both. It builds or lifts your own authority to cover these topics. So this is where you're thinking of let's use another example of like a beauty website where you may have new products, but also cover the benefits of using this and cover the headline in 6 different ways never the same exact one, and linking them all together over time. That's how you push forward what your own brand is getting search traffic for. The more one-off pieces you have that aren't connected to anything within your niche, it's going to be hard. It's hard now and will be near impossible in the future to really stand out enough for Google to trust you to be used in search results. All right, so heading tags. This is a new one because as Google, not a new one. This is there's new opportunity, let's say, for heading tags to be used in content, in that Google is pulling, they released what's called passage ranking a year ago. We see it where they pull out from the article content that the user wants to know and displays it. In this case, for these queries that Google chooses to show like that, they link to the publication. So it would be like pulling out, what's an example? Pulling the answer out to the top, but then saying, oh, People Magazine is where it came from, and only publishing a snippet of it. So there's traffic opportunity there, but there's also the on-page value of having this. So you're further enhancing the topic. They stand out on the page by using H2s or H3s. Usually we'll make it larger, bolded, something along those lines. And then it's an opportunity to incorporate more key terms into the topic. On the right is an example of where you can find, I say use live search results often to find what is ranking and the quality of those pieces to compare it to your own. I'll speak about this in a minute, but also just the Google has people also ask, and other soon, if anyone's seen the new display, it guides into other related topics. It's almost like a related topic. So you would be able to gain insight that, oh, if a user cares about this, there must be a lot of data to support that the next thing they're going to care about is these other 3 topics that Google has put there. And then this is a strategy that I think the last bullet there says used to include topic history. There's this middle tier of publishers, and you may find yourself here, where you're big, you're not small, you've grown, you have audience, you have traffic, but your competition is the biggest, brands or news sites in the world. And if you're covering the exact same thing as Reuters, you're going to have just based on your domain alone, to some extent, you're going to have a hard time outranking. If Google continues to have in the news, it gives a variety. And there's some things I'm just hopeful for in the future too, that Google displays options for topics. And then for you on the page, if you fit in this mid-tier and you're covering a news topic, how useful is it to have, like, at the bottom some sort of let's say Jeffrey Epstein, something's released about him, and that's like an old news case now. What about at the bottom having an H2 that talks about like a little of his history, like a summary? It almost like enhances that page, and the user clicks on, so many times they click on something that's just covering the news. You don't have a good example, a good context of the history or why it's important. So to use them to build in like also important things to know, include a keyword, of course, but to structure it that will keep the user scrolling and then even finding value, almost like, just added information at the bottom. And that would be something, you could go there. That would be something to enhance it, that Google may just push the value of your post above others when you are pulling in some FAQ related here and there in the bottom of a trending news post. All right, structured data. As we talk about, there's a lot of content strategy that's on the page. That's the words of the users. There's also, Google wants the information as fast as possible. This is why we're in the position that we are with Google. This is why you've seen AMP. I mean, you can like very clearly see the history of search where Google has said something like, we make this recommendation. Your website needs to be faster than 3 seconds. The publisher can't adhere to it. They can't solve on their own. So Google tries to provide an option to solve the problem for them. We almost see that right now with Google as a website landing page in the way that they're going. They've said, make your site clean. Don't clutter it with ads. Make the information clear. And for the websites that have not been able to evolve to get, to get that experience where it is, Google's like, okay, we're going to do it ourselves. And we're also a product that's going to put that right on the search result landing page. So structured data came out to provide behind the scenes. So I don't want to go too technical here. Most of you, I talk about it in every call that I have. It's code. It's a one-time implementation that allows Google to better understand the page. Structured data. It's exactly what it is, where it says event. So I'll use the example, event structured data. There's a conference coming up. On the back end, there's fields that will say date this, cost $50. Parking, it allows you to fill it out so Google gets it and can display it fastest to users and process the page faster. Can they do it without it? Sure. Can you get, there's in the code. If you're using a CMS like WordPress, it's built on ease of code and understanding. That's one of the perks of it. It's they build the structured data oftentimes into either plugins or directly into the theme. So you have it. If you're sitting on a more complex system or something that is custom, this may be even better for those sites because it's an option for Google to get your information fastest. There's a tool, if you just Google it, like Google Structured Data Checker, it allows you to put in a URL. It'll tell you what it shows, what it doesn't, and some options to do it. But here's some common ones. These are the most common, what you see on the page. That's why they're there. So on on your template, it's a one-time thing. On your article template, you should have breadcrumb, structured data, which tells about the navigation elements, and article, which allows you, the fields are like author, which is very important now. Publish date, very important now. Things that are under more stricter guidance than ever. So I do think these are one-time things. I think it's worth it for all publishers to do. I'll pause, breathe. Next slide. All right, number 2, 38.
I was just going to say, Lindsay, while you pause and breathe, I just dropped a reminder in the chat. Please ask any questions if they've come up in the chat, or we can pause now too if anyone wants to ask a question live. Any questions thus far? It's been a lot of amazing content so far, Lindsay.
Thank you. So in summary, being value on the page, or summary, to summarize part 1, provide as much value on the page. Number 2, user experience. You can go to the next slide. So this, clearly everyone knows what user experience is. I'm going to start with website navigation. Think of this as on the page. It's going to have more pressure than ever, depending on Google's new search results. That if they have, and in some of the mock-ups that I've seen, of course, I mean, I'm just waiting for them to have an ad unit on the page, but they don't. So let's see, if you go from like this super clean, very structured, dare I say, structured way of AI pulled content and a very bland query, family-friendly hikes in Phoenix, it's gonna that's AI, but it's clean. If you click into a website to have 4 different pop-ups covering the content, it's going to put even added pressure on websites. I think in short is where I'm going. Added pressure that you need to care about the user experience on your site, or they're going to go right back to where they were. And they're going to rely more. Users will rely more on the search results, and we want users to rely and to continue to see that value of clicking into the actual site. All right, so example, main site navigation. First of all, it's surprising on how many times I click into a website and don't see a navigation, or see one that might say articles, like the broadest concept, when this is really a time, and you can see an example right here directly of a navigation that is more targeted towards exactly what's on the site. So you want it to be horizontal on desktop, hamburger on mobile. If I go to your site, and I do this all the time, to still see hamburger navigations, which think of it as like the 3 little lines in the top corner, it's the drop down hamburger, expandable navigation, it doesn't need to be, that's not the best experience on desktop, because you're asking a user to go click just to see the main navigation. Now, I understand that maybe that they're coming in on maybe an article, so they're already on that, but you still want them to be able to see what's on the site and what you care about. Now, one thing is to subcategories, you want these to be, okay, so I would say, and you can see here, lean on main categories. These should be less. It doesn't mean 2, but this is where I was talking about consolidate or expand. You want to make sure you're regularly publishing to every main category in some way, because those are what represents your main things. Sometimes I'll say to a publisher, define what you are, tell me, and if they're covering everything under the sun, tell me what you are in 3 things. No, you don't get 10, you get 3. Tell me 3 things. So that it could be 5, it could be however many. It's true to your brand that you're regularly investing in. And they give huge signals to Google. Then expand on the subcategories. I would even go a little deeper into subcategories. Sometimes I see no subcategories. There has to be this level of information architecture in how Google sees what you cover, and then it credits you for being experienced and authoritative enough to talk about it. It provides long tail ranking opportunity. I would say is one of the biggest things I've seen.
Linz, we do have a question, actually regarding the May update from Google. This publisher heard that there's an unconfirmed update in May that led to drops in traffic. What are your thoughts about it?
I did read it. I do follow. I agreed it was from good sources that it was unconfirmed. That's just the problem was that it like Google says when they do, but of course, Google updates their algorithm all the time. I think sometimes they do tweaks that are maybe supposed to not have as big, right? So they build up and they'll say, hey, it's not a core, they'll announce them now. So I just don't, unconfirmed to me is usually true that it was Google did something and it was possibly a little stronger than they expected. But I agree. And I saw some publishers talking about this.
Great question.
Do you want to, Google said they update the algorithm every day in tiny tweaks. So if we're out there talking about every single confirmed, unconfirmed, but we do report to our publishers the big ones when they happen. Main website navigation. I think one trend that I saw more common in last year here is the care of category pages. There was one time to say, because again, they're not your traffic drivers, but think of them as pillars. They're the things that link out to all the things that are about that topic. Everything that this has about TV shows is under the category shows in one place, and optimizing those as almost more like pillar pages or hub pages, allowing them to be indexed. Many publishers did this because they give strength to those other pages within it. You can optimize it for content. Many times there isn't a place built for content right on that hub page. You could use a meta description, a title tag. And then if it's something that you publish a ton of content to, and in that all of a sudden you now have this website and then the shows category and then 800 pages of pagination. It can kind of where we try to almost like index control, index optimization to add a tag for no index follow after maybe like pagination page 25. And that doesn't take the actual pages from being indexed, but doesn't allow there to be 800 category index pages for just one topic. It really depends on the size of your site. I never talk much about pagination or like no indexing tag pages. There's a way to cut down a lot of what Google indexes for your site. If you're relatively small, it's not going to matter. We work with publishers that have millions of index pages, and that's a lot of content to keep straight. So that's where some of these tactics come into play, where you control the excess. But do not, you can go to the next slide, do not miss out on the opportunity of a very optimized navigation. Those signals are telling Google what your business is, what you sell, what you publish on, what you're an expert in. All right, this is one of my favorites because for so many years, there's SEO has been abused to some extent, right? We're finding, but maybe not necessarily always malicious, but we actively need the user to stay on the page, and we need for ad revenue, for time on page, for metrics. But it's come full circle where I'm seeing publishers really just move away from the tactic that was adding fluff, adding the story before the recipe. Talk about this a lot. You don't need it. The user, what they want to know at the top of your recipe post is the ingredients. That's what they want to know first, I promise, because that's how you indicate you're standing in a store, or images. That's the first thing they're going to look at too. That's going to get their attention. But then when they're looking at that, you can get them the useful information at the top without losing them and giving them everything. But it's certainly not about wasting the time and burying the lead. I think I put that somewhere in here. Respecting the user to get to the point. We're seeing a lot of short form, right? There's content types for long form, and there's types for short form, where the best thing you can do for the user is give them the answer. And now Google's going to do it for you anyways, right on the search results. So it'll be about getting the trust of that user, that after you give them what they're looking for at the top, that you're able to keep their attention on the page. Some of the strategies that I've seen the most over the last 2 years, which have been great, jump to table of contents functionality. This is a good one. Puts the user right there. Summaries at the top. I love that one. I've seen it a lot with news. You want to summarize a lot instead of putting so much. Okay, I see the 15-minute mark. I think go to the next one. There's one on readability, which my article formatting. Okay, perfect. So not everything is just about the content on quality or the technical elements, but what about how it looks on the page? And both of these are good quality sites, but to think of it, this is an example of the bullets, and to getting them short pieces of information. Users are intimidated or deterred by blocks of chunks. So, I actually didn't put it on. Shorter paragraphs when you're writing content. It's almost like a mobile formatting tip. Font types should be eligible, nothing fancy. Larger, that's common to see it that large. Think of the hyperlink styling, the padding. What can you control on the page to keep people there longer? Next slide. Providing helpful content. This was Google's literal words. One of those things where I know it's not easy. What is helpful? We always do our best, right? I'm sure you're out there with your editorial team trying to provide helpful content. What does that mean? More than anything, I take this slide, I circle back to thin content. I say did a post that ranks #1 on Google, did it take 8 hours to write and research and write? Probably. I'm not joking when I say when you're working with huge editorial teams and freelancers, that is what it takes to write a quality content that's going to rank on Google, that's going to, and it does need to be all of those things. And when you're thinking, you can go to the next slide, of hitting publish, do take that last glance back at the page to look at the readability, look at how it's organized. Is it helpful? Is there something glaringly missing that would complete that topic complete the topic? Words matter. This is a good one. Grammar, spelling. Be careful of translating. There's a lot of content that when you read it, just read it. You can tell when it doesn't sound exactly natural. The interesting part about AI, right? If you think of the shift in Google from no AI is bad, keep out of it, then it's okay. It makes more sense now that they let loosened the standard, right? Because they're going to be like, because it doesn't matter. We're going to use all those people just running AI. We're just going to put it right here. We're going to be able to detect the sources that have used this AI, which is written in a very specific way. It's not supposed to have an opinion. This is a huge thing. We can't have Google pulling together opinions in AI. So how you write your content, again, you're going to sound better on the page, I'm hoping, than what Google's able to evolve on the SERP. But that takes credibility, grammar and spelling. I think this is the top one here. Typos. Because for a user, you lose your trust right there. When you have a choice, you're not going to trust a publication that has spelling errors and doesn't sound natural. All right, next. Okay, so this was just a slide. Now I feel like I've kind of mentioned and alluded to it because of Google's announcement last week. We've talked a lot about it. So whether we like it or not, it's here. There's a lot of talk. So if you have no clue what I'm talking about, you can Google it. But last week, you could Google it. Last week, just to Google like new search results or Google generative search experience. It's called I'll have to double check. SEG, something, E is the last letter, but it's their new product. And they have it almost where it's like card-like functionality in the search results. So Google it, and we'll do a follow-up on that. It's much longer today, but it's going to change things. Content quality. It's if everyone stops publishing content and high quality content, your experience on site is going to be weaker. I definitely, at the moment, continuing to put the value into content creation, expanding on topics that people care about. All the things that I've said today still ring true, at least for the moment, until we know where everything is headed. And go for the long tail. I think it's going to get harder to rank for like the the little bitty search terms where it's already been difficult. All right, next slide. Don't panic. Don't stop publishing. Brand authority. Next slide. Trust and perception. A lot of this has to do, right, with the tactics of marketing. This is what we've been doing all along. This is why you write good content, why people watermark photos, why you do custom photos. We've been trying to push our brand so that when the user has the choice, even in current day search results, when they're scrolling through, if your brand stands out, you're more likely to have the trust of a user. So care about things like design enhancements. This is a tough one. No one's going to probably be able to do it fast enough. If you're sitting on a website that you haven't touched since the year 2000, you have a lot of work to do, right? So, but do it, or you're going to not be in the search, be in the search results in that same sense. Do small things, tweak it over time. Like, yes, be careful, but do understand that there's an element of do it simply. It could be like design enhancements could be whatever framework you're still working in, but just cleaner, clear focused. Editorial investments. If you're going to tell me that you're using AI to publish, you can go to the next slide. AI to publish everything. It takes editorial investments to last in the search results. Luckily, we've talked some about this already too, that blogger to business, we want websites. What about a lot of voices? If you have one name, isn't there a little bit eye-raising? You raise an eyebrow. If there's one name across thousands and thousands, and it could be true, it could be your blog, but what about opening that up to other experts, other writers, making sure they have that, be unique. This is the way that you're going to stand out. If Google has one answer that's AI compiled in the search results, what about your voice and the opinions of users? Are users going to crave that click, crave that actual voice? So provide something natural and unique on page. Be transparent. Authors, dates, about page, contact information, social handles, privacy policies, very important, consent forms. Things are still there that prove your value as a larger business that is worthy of the user trust. Next. Finding a way to stand out. 6+ million posts a day. How many brownie recipes do we need? I don't want to be starting a blog. Now's not the time to be starting a publishing site. I can tell you that much. So 10% generate revenue. That's a huge stat that I just saw. It's because they're not finding the right audience. One thing too, it's not even this deck, but promise you this, one thing that Google's change is one thing that will come from Google's change is the value in the other areas of your business. Do you have an email program? Do you have a subscription model? Do you have product? Have you white labeled a product? Could you have a product, a course? Oh, anything that's going to have to find your audience in these different places. If you're solely reliant on search results, to scary time, less traffic will likely be coming. Diversify. All the things we've talked about today wrap into that. So find a way to stand out by doing something different. If you're
Lindsay,
just
I'm just going to pause you. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to pause you there because we have about 3 minutes left of our original time. That said, I think what we'll do is keep going. We will have this in a recording. It will go out to everyone, so you won't miss any of the great content that's left. Though, if you have to jump and you had a question, please feel free to let us know now. You can come on camera. You can drop it in the chat. If you need to jump at the hour, we want to respect your time, but I think, Lindsay, you can keep going after that, and we'll send out the recording if that works for everyone. Does anyone have a question that needs to kind of get going?
That is great. We knew it was a lot of content today to get through. Appreciate everyone sticking through it.
Okay, keep going, Lindsay, and if something comes up, I'll go ahead and let you know in the chat.
Okay, that last bullet says second day stories. When you're competing for news, when you're competing as a news publisher and everyone's covering the same story, sometimes it pays to publish the next day. Because Google's, again, everyone published right when it happened, when whatever event happened. Maybe you're bringing in a point of view, finding a way to stand out by doing something that, well, now more than ever, Google can't replicate right directly on the search results. I too loved the play out of what time is daylight savings and when does the Super Bowl start, and all of these queries that at one point had a time in publishing to do. We need to offer more now as publishers that Google can't answer. All right, checking out your competition. Google gives you the search results, the best free tool to see exactly what they are prioritizing. You can Google whatever you think your article should be ranking for before you hit publish. I think in some sense what's going to happen is to freelance writers into editorial, like to where publishers have to still be incentivized or led to produce high quality content. But by looking at the search results, don't be deterred if it's this piece, that yours is not. It's more about identifying the commonalities. So if every recipe ranking in the top 3, 5 has a video, Google's valuing that trend. And that means users value it. So even if you go down the path where maybe it's not organic, because it's going to get harder to rank, because I'm saying if it's not there, you can drive users to your new video that you created via an email. So take trends away from, because what that's telling you is what users value from whatever the audience. And then brand authority, that's going to keep pressing upon the brand strength, because when you have all these options, as you can see, Parade, Good Housekeeping, Tiny Beans, those are 3 big brands. So getting your place to be recognized, it takes effort. I have a slide coming up on offline things that can help. All right.
And we have two, sorry to interrupt you there. We have 2 quick questions. One's quick, and going back to the last slide, this person asked if you can please explain the second day stories.
Sometimes when news happens, hurricane destroys a town, something like that, everyone rushes to publish something, but there's little known facts and information. So you rush to publish, not a lot's released. There's no one boots on the ground in these places yet. Sometimes by waiting 12 hours or the next day, you can report more because more is known. So that's one, but also think of top stories. Google's recirculating top stories on the hour. I believe that is true, that they have said they refresh to give users at all times like a different set of options to choose from. If out of 1,500 brands, they all publish that day on the same day, who's publishing a second day story? If you can't compete with the very top, and all of a sudden now only 50 publications really followed up that next day on how the tornado impacted the community, what efforts around helping and resources there are, now publish a story with more actionable things people can do. And you don't have everyone hitting publish right there, where Google's just, there's an abundance, a crowding of content. So it literally means waiting a little bit after the bump and having more value to that story.
Makes sense. I feel like when something big happens, I do find articles where I'm like, this is telling me nothing besides a headline.
Yeah.
Great. And then the next question, Lindsay, is about the algorithm change again, or the update made by Google. This publisher focuses a lot on the quality points you've mentioned here, but their traffic has fallen. Discover search from the latest Google update. Mostly their entertainment and news content. Any thoughts on what is happening and how do they get that traffic back?
So algorithm updates are general. There's not an exact, we don't exactly know what they're doing. I would say, has the landscape changed? It's important to see what pages have fallen, and go to the next slide in case it's algorithm recovery. Off-page efforts, I have it coming up here. There's only so much you can do. It takes time. I've seen it take years of time, a year to recover from algorithm updates, if not more. If it's in the I'm trying to think just in my own head if the search result landscape itself has changed or any big trend with that. I think news is getting harder to compete for. I'm happy to look at a section of the site after this call, or emailing me. You can put my email address in here too, about that kind of section. Image quality, here's actually something that's specific to entertainment. When you have a ton of stock photos, or everyone using Shutterstock or a service where it's these photos and then that are average quality, so invest in high quality images, try to make them unique, which is very hard with entertainment. You're really paying for it at that point. But the size dimension, Google Discover won't include, if you look at the 2 screenshots, even here, neither of these are Discover, but that wide one, to be in Discover, they require 1200 pixel width images. So somewhere on the page, pre-compression, an image feature, because it wants that experience to be, they know how visual it is and how much it enhances. So you're probably struggling with like the if it's entertainment, if it, like the news sector being that trending factor, and images have more, they weigh heavier into that style type of content than others. Other than that, follow up after with your URL. I would, from this call too, I don't know if we send out decks or if everybody's been taking notes, but I really mean to dig into all of these topics. Is your entertainment stories better quality than the top 10 or the top 5? Brand domain authority. You can go to the next slide. That's a big one. It's hard to beat the properties that are been around 100 years and have huge value in the brand. All right, off-page efforts. There's ways to get creative. I've seen people dig into get active in communities. Oh, it's not easy. Who wants to be like in Reddit or in a forum talking about, you know, things of this? But over time, it does build trust, and you meet people. So, and you meet people, and the conversation is getting more, I'd say, more important. And you have these areas like social. It might not drive traffic so many times. I'd say like people like me that have been driving value, you know, almost on behalf of Google, right? Where we've been the monkeys or the puppet that's been like, Google says all these good things, you're to do all these things. Now we tell publishers to do them. And now we're questioning the value of the website. So right now Google has done this with the new search results. So it's going to be in these pockets or platforms and communities of discussion that might foster, or does foster, the brand awareness and the trust and any sort of off-page efforts. Links, I mean, backlinks. Sometimes if a site comes to me and they're like, oh, this site, I'm better, I look better, I'm better quality, they say. Why does this site keep beating me, you know, in every ranking? Oh, they have 50 million backlinks. It still is a huge weight. It still matters. And if you, all of these efforts, right? You've probably long heard an algorithm has over 200 factors. Google said that once upon a time, it stuck. All of it. Speed has a part as well. But backlinks certainly have a huge effort. So spend some time in this. Reddit, I just read an amazing article on like Reddit is driving publisher traffic, YouTube, things like that, where you might not be in obvious traffic. They do, and they are communities. Guest posts, content syndication, partnerships. If there's like, it kind of gets sticky because they're your competitors, but sometimes they're not. Sometimes you can foster relationships with influencers or active areas that will allow you to write a guest post or be quoted for articles. There's systems that allow you to contribute, journalism schools that allow you to contribute to conversations and get picked up there. So it's not just about the website. Off page is going to become more important too. Okay, next. All right, so much of what I talked about today, and I do recognize that I'm way over time. News sites, it's hard. You just the site that just said, I feel for you, because it's very strict. To Google to be placed in top stories, it's their reputation on the line too, and they're trying to combat anything not accurate, certainly fake. If you have a history, if you're an entertainment public, this happened. If you're entertainment news and you have content on your site about fake pregnancy reports, speculation, stuff that really is low quality and not true, things like that can hurt your brand over time. If you're talking about rumors, people have got by with having rumors as a subcategory on their site. That's fine, but it's not, you know, who do you really want to be? the days of trying to clickbait, publishers are going to have to try to find traffic in other areas. It's going to be interesting, you guys. Like, back to that, it's not going to be boring. To the David Bowie quote, not going to be boring. Because you're going to have to find audience in other areas. And if you are getting, especially for made for advertising sites, we're seeing them blocked more than ever, flagged more than ever by huge demand sources. Like, we don't want to run ads on those things. But publishers have been a group that has gotten by on clickbait, gotten by on speculative, leading headlines. And Google's come all the way full circle to say, not only are we good enough to figure it out, or in theory, hopefully good enough to figure it out, we're not going to put stories or publications like this. The utmost trust goes into the sites that are in top storage of the news tabs. Having a date, having an author, content information. This is where that structured data can really help. You know, when you guys Google something, you Google a brand, Google your brand, and see if a knowledge graph comes up on the right-hand side. It really is not that important, other than the fact that Google knows enough about those businesses. It's like almost like a flag for, do you need to get them more information about yourself? Like, think of it as an index or a directory on the internet. If you type in Target or like a store or a brand that's recognizable, stuff's going to come up on that right-hand side that's like founded in the year 1972, you know, whatever it is. It's going to be information. Again, it doesn't really care, other than it means that they trust the site or the brand. This is the biggest one with news sites too. It's the bottom one. Sponsored content, user generated content, stuff on the site that is like a partnership or possibly paid. We used to do this where like we'd have the site and there was a block that was like sponsored by MSN, and it was like their own news content that would get, but of course they were paying for that. So it needs to be labeled links, sponsored, the outbound link attribution. Protect yourselves. I don't think it's that harmful to do a mass no index for all outbound links, just to be safe. If you're a big news site trying to fight to get trust and to get included in those areas, it's better safer than not. Edit standards, I've seen a lot more. Thank you, that's good. A lot more sites will write about their processes of their page. You can find like almost like privacy policies. The point is to tell the user what you're collecting. It's a transparency. You tell the user all the data that you're collecting. Editorial process or review processes, having a page that outlines the process you take when reviewing content. It is a trust factor. So algorithm recovery, it's much of what I would say, start at the beginning of this slide and this presentation and work through it, because check off what you can of what you feel solid about, and to work in all those areas. You're working to improve the quality of your content. You're working to improve how well known your brand is, and user experience. So the 3 buckets. If you were truly hit by an algorithm, you'll likely see it right on that day, like March 15th, March 16th. That was the day of the March algorithm update. That's when I would see a site take a noticeable drop. A week later, I don't know, yes, a week later, but if it's like between them, I guess I'd say sometimes it's more about, this is where like, oh, you stopped publishing content. It's like, you'll see it's different things that are impacted, but if it's the algorithm update, it'll be right around that time. Use analytics. This is where I would say, if you can pinpoint what type within the industry pages, or entertainment pages, sorry. Is it your coverage of the actual news event? Is it the evergreen topics? Pinpoint where it is. If it's across all pages, it's more often like a broad issue. Template enhancements can help you fix things at a faster rate. Structured data, one time, just do it. Like the top of the top brands have all implemented structured data, or at least this is how I would tell a publisher, like, I don't need to say it anymore. Let's do all those things. Let's take the SEOs out of it, in a sense that all top sites have these quality standards that they adhere to, and less conversation about, oh, but HTML title tags don't work anymore. Okay, they don't work of and only of themselves, but they're a part of the overall picture that the best of the best are doing. So that's what we're working for, not so much what I'm saying. And it takes a long time. I've almost never seen a site not recover if you truly do these things. And it does suck to tell an executive or tell people that it's going to take a year and a half to fix all of these things. But it's because, if you could position this to your executives, it's because we didn't do all of these recommendations I've been making for the last decade. So this isn't new stuff. It's just going to all of a sudden be like an oh crap moment when publishers didn't do it. And then it's going to be about brands evolving, publishers evolving. Where can you find audience? If it's not search results, where will you and how will you get the value of your business? All right. In conclusion, I think I've said all these things, so I'm not even going to repeat them. Quality is an investment. It will pay off. High quality advertisers want to be on high quality pages. It's probably my favorite one because, again, we're all here to continue to monetize and to receive the revenue rewards on the good content that you're producing to the web. Now, there's still going to be value in that for your business, regardless of what directions the search results take. But we want to hear from you. If there's things you're seeing or things you think, we're in Slack. My email address is in there. This is it is an uncertain time for publishers. I said, don't panic. I don't think it's productive to panic because in ways this has happened before. Who remembers when keywords were taken out of GA? Who remembers when the small part of Google answer box came out and everyone's like, oh, what does the name Jack mean? Every word definition sites were going away. Like, we've been through this, but the value has to be on the page to get a user there. All right. Anything else? Thank you. 1 hour, 17 minutes. This was a giant fail.
We had one other question, but I think we'll offline it just due to the time with the person that asked. Lindsay, I'll make sure you get back to the person. Okay. So yes, thank you so much again for all of you for sticking with us. I think we're going to have a workshop coming up really focusing on SERPs and kind of how to navigate some changes, but please let us know if there's a topic you want us to dive in on, and we're happy to do it. We're going to be out at a lot of industry events this summer. A variety of our team members will. So if you will be as well, such as Cannes Lion, I know Programmatic IO just wrapped. We'll be at ATS in London, Games Forum in Hamburg. Please let us know. We'll connect some Freestar team members with you so you can start to meet the team face to face. And thank you, Lindsay, for such an amazing presentation today. I hope everyone saw and got a lot of value out of it.
Thank you guys so much. Bye.